For more reaction to the act, we're joined in studio now by Andile Mngxitama, a member of parliament for the MK party. He serves on the House's Portfolio Committee on Land and Rural Development. Andile, good morning, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for the invite, Ms. Chava, and greetings to the viewers at home.
Now, in your most recent tweet, you posted, or X rather, Ramaphosa had signed the so-called Expropriation Act, which is basically land expropriation without expropriation of land, and the sky is evil. I shall be breaking down the act to show it's a farce and a sellout project. Anyone who thinks Ramaphosa can expropriate land is lost. I mean, you've gone as far as also calling it a con. Could you walk us through your reasons for this stance?
Indeed, this act is a colossal betrayal of our people. There's no way where it says land expropriation without compensation. There's nothing fundamentally new from the apartheid 1975 Expropriation Act, which basically said where land is being expropriated, market-related compensation must be paid. You know, that's a little bit like saying, if I steal your car and you want it back, you must still pay me, the thief of your car. This is what this act is about. And the problem is not really the act. The problem is in the Constitution. Section 25 of the Constitution protects the property of land thieves, as we call them. And it says if you are going to expropriate, you must pay just an equitable compensation. Now, what that means has been clarified by our courts. Just an equitable compensation is market value. So basically, this act says when we want our land, we must go back. And if the land thief is willing to sell, we can only buy then. So there's nothing new. It is the same old process of willing buyer, willing seller, which benefits land thieves once more.
All right. Now, you mentioned Section 25. The progressive forces opposition parties believe that amending Section 25 of the South African Constitution is the only way to effectively address the historical injustices and inequality that are related to land ownership in the country. Now, how do you perceive the current legal framework outlined in this section?
Well, it is very clear. You know, some people get confused when they read that section when it says certain matters must be taken in consideration when you expropriate, such as the use of the land, how it was acquired, and so on and so forth. But all that is irrelevant. The matter of land compensation has already been determined by our courts. The court has said, by the way, interestingly, Advocate Newzroom, he sits as the judge in the Land Claims Court. He made a ruling there in the Msiza case where he wanted to take off some of these categories from the financial compensation. That decision was overturned in the appeal court. The appeal court was very clear. You must pay market-related compensation to farmers when you take the land to redress the injustice of the past. So we are sitting with a problem, and the problem is in Section 25, which simply says land which was stolen from us, now in the hands of white people, if we want it back, we must buy it from them. And it's evil, it is unethical, it is unacceptable, and that is why MK Party is going to bring a private member's bill to amend Section 25 of the Constitution, and we're taking it back to 1652 with the arrival of Jan van Riebeeck and his gang. And because that's the time all our problems started. We can't talk about land without talking about Jan van Riebeeck's arrival. That is the cut-off date, and MK Party is going to bring this matter back to Parliament, and let's see if these political parties are going to serve our people or betray them again. Now,
with that said, Andile, then, as you rightfully put it, would we then not be taking South Africa back to 1952 then in that regard? Because if you look at it, there are significant concerns, and understandably so, that radical land reform could plunge South Africa into great economic disparity. So how do you then propose that we go about this without sinking the entire country into absolute anarchy?
You know, we are talking about redress. How can that be not a good thing? When right now, over 70% of the land is in the hands of a minority. By the way, a large portion of South African black people are without food security as we speak. Farmers in South Africa produce for the market and for profits and for exports. They are not addressing the issues of our people. So only from that point of view, in fact, it would be good enough reason to expropriate this land. But you know, we are responding to the hysteria of land thieves. Look, if I'm a thief and I see the police van coming by, I'm going to react in this way. When you say land expropriation, immediately land thieves jump up and down. They're talking about going to court because they are terrified, because they know they do not have legitimate right over this land. Just say expropriation and you trigger them because the guilty are afraid. And we must not pander to these white sensibilities and white fears. This is what has held us back. And the ANC is so terrified of white backlash. And that is why it has given us a Land Expropriation Act which does not expropriate land. This is a serious betrayal of our people. By the way, there were public hearings. The overwhelming majority of our people were very clear, gave the ANC the mandate to expropriate land without compensation. In this act, there's not one sentence that says land expropriation without compensation.
All right. Now, okay, in one of the tweets, or rather X's, I need to get used to calling them X's, right? We are living in a new age. All right. One of your X's says that the irony in this Expropriation Act is that the racist DA minister is correct to claim it doesn't authorize land expropriation without compensation. And the ANC deputy minister is selling us a bad dream, the GNU things, jokes and a fuss, we remain landless. So now, given the DA's strong opposition and potential legal challenge to the expropriation bill, now, would you then say there are common areas, or is there common ground between the MKP and the DA on this particular issue?
No, we want land expropriation without compensation. The DA is responding, as I said, like a typical thief. When they see a van of the police, they get hysterical. When you say land expropriation, the DA, AfriForum, and all those who represent land thieves get really hysterical. And they want to go to court, they're jumping up and down, because they know that proper land expropriation will take the land they hold illegitimately right now. We must not be concerned about the reactions of land thieves. Really, if we are serious about redress and making sure that historical injustices are addressed, we must simply say the land was taken from black people and that land must be returned, period. There's no more conversation that must go on. Why must we pay compensation? This is evil, and it is there in the Constitution that when you want your land back, you must pay these people a market-related compensation. And that status quo in terms of the law remains. It is not being changed by this Expropriation Act. This Expropriation Act simply outlines a procedure of what must happen when land is expropriated and financial compensation must be paid. All
right. But just to be fair, I mean, with the critical role that you've played in the BFL, as well as all these conversations that you've been having in the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee, what have you done? What has been your role? And why are you only having this? Why are we saying these things only now?
We have been saying this since time immemorial. I have been working with labor tenants, one of the most oppressed people in this country, and they remain landless, they remain abused on farms. It's a shocking situation, by the way. If you go to the experiences of our people up to today on farms, these white farmers are really evil. They even kill them, and the police, they control the police and the criminal justice system in these farmland situations. We have been agitating for land. That is why I'm in MK now. And I believe that we are on the right track as MK to call for proper expropriation of land without compensation, going back right to 1652 to address this question once and for all.
All right, now let's expand on this, because now this is the biggest question of all. What alternative proposal do you have to address the issue of land reform? How do we go about it?
It is very simple. You know, white people, when they after defeating us and taking our land, they went to parliament still. They excluded us, of course. And they made a law in 1913 to take 87% of the land to themselves and gave us 13%. It was an act of parliament that legalized land theft. We have the majority, and this is for me the biggest unfortunate situation. That parliament already, as we speak, is constituted by a black majority. We have the numbers if we're serious about redressing this matter. But of course, white people, from their economic strength, they've bought political parties, and that is why some political parties, even if they claim to be black, they will oppose land expropriation because they speak for land thieves, not the interests of the black majority. But we're going to push it. We're going to make sure we expose those who oppose this project so that our people can see who stands with them and who's against them, and make sure that during the elections, they elect the right people.
All right. When you say you're going to push it, what are MK's plan in light of the expropriation bill? Are you going to take this to court?
No, we're taking it right to parliament because that's where the matter must be resolved. This is a political problem. It's not a legal problem. And so MK Party is going to put a private member's bill calling for land expropriation without compensation in very clear, categorical terms, taking it back to 1652 and saying this land must be returned to our people. This land was stolen from our people. White people who have this land right now have no legitimate right over that land. They are, as we say, as good as land thieves. And we must not pander to their fears. When you have to deal with a thief, you don't listen to their reasoning. You actually go for justice. You make sure they go to jail and the property is returned to its rightful owners. So what is this conversation we're having in this country about a property that belongs to us? We know how this land was taken. We know who stole the land, and they are still keeping it. If you drive here to Cape Town, you'll see all that land. It is stolen property in the hands of a settler minority people.